Hey guys, I'm Chris Buck, and a very warm welcome to Friday Fretworks, and this week, pedal overdrive versus amp overdrive. Have I been missing a trick all these years? I rewind to 2009 and I just bought my first serious, kind of proper guitar effects pedal. It was a Boss BD2, Blues Driver. I'd read good things about them online, I'd seen that John Mayer used to use one, and crucially I'd just made the switch from using a Les Paul straight into my Marshall JCM 800 to using a homemade kind of parts caster Strat that my dad had lovingly put together, and a Fender Hot Rod Deluxe, which in much the same way as nearly every two-channel Fender I've ever made, sounded brilliant clean and not so brilliant dirty. And thus, as of today, started a near enough 13-14 year obsession with guitar effects pedals. One, of course, quickly became 2, became 3, became 10, and it wouldn't be long until I got my first pedal board. A homemade jobby from a second-hand music store in Hereford that, in lieu of Velcro, someone had covered with carpet, which I still think is absolutely genius. Pedals would stick to it and you could never get them off again. And in the years since, I've had innumerable guitars, amps, pedals, pedal boards, but the one consistent has been the kind of core principle of the rig. Clean, or cleanish amps, and distorted pedals. But in the process of digging out that clip of me with my Marshall JCM 800 for last week's Friday Fretworks, it did kind of get me thinking, have I really been missing a trick? A loud, gained-up guitar amp sounds fundamentally different to an amp being pushed into being loud by pedals. Not better per se, just different, but there is undoubtedly this kind of symbiotic relationship that happens between a loud amp and a guitar's volume control, which when you work the volume control as much as I do on a guitar anyway, I mean the missing paint from my Revstar very much is testament to that, there really is so much to be said for knowing how to work a loud amp. And of course, as so many people are very quick to point out on YouTube, whenever they see me using a pedal board or a pedal of any kind, Hendrix didn't need them, so why should I? Joking aside, I am very fortunate to be in a guitar-orientated or a guitar-based band, playing for the most part fairly decent-sized venues, and crucially with our own touring front-of-house engineer who knows and understands the band's sound. So I probably am in the situation where if I wanted to, I could just get away with not a gain stage in pedals and worrying about pedal boards, but just plugging into a loud, distorted guitar amp. In short, is it time to go back to my roots? Now, the amp that I'm going to be using in today's little experiment is an amp that, in all likelihood, would be pretty much the perfect candidate if I was to make the switch. It's the new Victory Deputy. It's a recent collaboration between Victory and a good mate of mine, Pete Honore. And you can kind of think of it as a halfway house or a kind of merging of the Victory Duchess, kind of Victory's take on a Fender-style amp and an amp that I'm very familiar with, and the Victory Sheriff, their take on a classic Marshall. And as such, you can get anywhere from clean to light breakup through a maybe late 60s, early 70s kind of classic rock, Paul Kossoff kind of territory. I was lucky enough to play a pre-production version of this amp a few months ago and really was incredibly impressed by it. Of course, Martin Kidd is a bloody genius, we all know that. But it was just such a dynamic, versatile amp that I really liked the gain sound of. So, as I said, if there was to be a likely candidate for such a scenario as me going directly into the amp, this would probably be a very good shout. Now, for frame of reference, I'm going to take you through some of the sounds on this amp, from clean through to breakup, through to probably the amount of gain that I would need on tap, of course then controlled by my guitar's volume control, if I was to use this amp in a live scenario. Sounds a little bit like this. So having done that, I guess the next obvious logical step is to run the amp pretty clean, but push it using my usual array of pedals, either individually or stacked to, pardon the pun, see how they stack up. So first and foremost, I'm genuinely intrigued to see what you guys made of that, what you were hearing, what you liked, what you didn't like, if there was maybe a sound or a combination of pedals or amp alone that you kind of found yourself gravitated towards. Please do let me know down in the comment box. But I guess the first thing worth pointing out for myself at least is that when it comes to things like this, there are very much two competing parts of, I guess, ultimately, my personality at play. So I had a chat with a good mate of mine recently, Matt Ferguson from Yamaha, and we got onto the subject of our favourite guitar tones, either live or recorded, or that we'd seen in person. And for the most part, pretty much every example that we could think of was a guitar player plugging near enough directly into an amplifier. For Matt, one of his favourite tones ever was actually a session guitarist playing with Amy Mann back on Conan O'Brien back in 1994 using a cranked, I think, Silverface Super Reverb and a Gretsch Jet Firebird. And for me, it probably still is Slash on Appetite for Destruction, or even Guns N' Roses live at the Ritz in '88, which I think was straight into a Marshall JCM 800. There really is so much to be said for the directness and, as I said, the aggressiveness and that excitement of plugging into a loud amplifier and just knowing how to get the best out of it. It really is unparalleled. And in that respect, it's worth pointing out there were a few moments with the Victory, especially when it was kind of on the edge of breakup, where it was just a joy. It was just effortless to play. It was easy under the fingers. It kind of cleaned up if you roll your volume back, but breaks up really nicely if you push your volume back up. Just effortless, and arguably more so than you would ever get with any pedal. So dynamically responsive. As I said, though, there is very much another part of my personality which is competing here, and that is, bluntly, my love of pedals, my love of effects, my love of delays and trems and reverbs and overdrives and textures and sounds that I find inspiring. And not only my playing style as a guitar player, but crucially the sound of Cardinal Black has kind of evolved at this point around my use of effects. And as much as I could undoubtedly go back to plugging straight into an amp, I did that for years, let's not forget that. I honestly don't think, at this point in my life anyway, that I would really want to. Even if I ditched my overdrive pedals, which, as I said, is entirely feasible, I would still want my trems and my delays and my reverbs and kind of effects that I use to taste. At which point, does it really matter if there's another maybe 1 or 2 or 3 overdrive pedals on your board for different flavours? For example, one of my favourite overdrive pedals of recent times is the Great Eastern Effects Small Speaker Overdrive that, as the name suggests, has this unnerving ability to make pretty much any amp sound like a cranked Fender Champ. Really is spectacular. The Molnir that you heard me playing through is very much kind of based on a Klon, so it has that distinctive mid-push character. The King of Tone and the Black Box famously derived from that original 90s Marshall Blues Breaker. And that's not to mention my new favourite Thorpe pedal, which I'm definitely not allowed to tell you about yet. The point being, at the end of all this, I love pedals. I find them endlessly inspiring. But I also love loud, cranked guitar amps, and I find them endlessly inspiring, just maybe in different scenarios. And in the interest of balance, I'm going to play you out now with a clip with me plugged near enough directly into a 63 Vibroverb, pretty much the holy grail of Fender amplifiers, running, you guessed it, near enough flat out. As ever, I'm Chris Buck. This is Friday Fretworks. Thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe, hit the bell icon if you haven't already, and I shall see you next week for another episode. Cheers, guys. Take care. See you soon.